Hi, today I'm going to explore what are the cheapest options for producing social media content. Can I use old Mac laptops? Can I use old iPhones? Really old? Like, how far can I go back? What kind of lighting do I have to buy? Can I get something for under 100, under 200 bucks? Even if you want to do green screen, I'm going to show you how you can use these cameras to capture for your own virtual studio. And finally, we're going to talk about audio. Super dirt cheap options, including right here using your phone. Do you even need a mic? Let's find out. Let's get to it. So you're here because you're looking to do social media content as cheaply as you possibly can, but looking good and professional. And I'm here to run the paces through some very affordable gear. I'm going to look at an older M1 Mac Air versus a more recent M5 MacBook Pro. And then I'm going to look at an ancient iPhone 5C and compare it to a more modern but affordable iPhone 14 Pro. And you'd ask, why look at this old gear? Because there are things that you can still do with this old equipment that might blow your mind. So we're going to put a few parameters on things. First, I'm going to work with Mac stuff. You could easily translate what I'm showing here to Androids and other phone operating systems and Windows and Linux machines. So what you're seeing here, you could do anything that I'm doing with other models. But I'm a big Mac guy, and the equipment here is older, a lot of it, but it's very reliable. So I'm going to dig in and go that route. Audio, we're only going to talk about audio coming from the MacBooks, from their actual internal mics, or the two cameras, the iPhone 5C and the iPhone 14. We're not going to get involved in other wireless mics. I'll cover that on a later episode. So with the AI enhancement tools, either for free or dirt cheap, you can make the audio coming from these devices really, really sound great. So I don't want anybody getting locked down and tied up in fears over what about the audio. I want to make this so you don't have to worry about audio. So you can do your creative work inside or out and not have to get overwhelmed with all this equipment and all these worries. Also, I want to talk about webcams, why I'm not going to talk about them. I'm not a huge fan because webcams, number one, they clip onto your computer, and I'm not a fan of clipping anything on the top of my laptop just for possibility of breaking things. Number two, you get more bang for your buck, as you're going to see, if you invest in a phone, even an older model, compared to buying a $150, $200 webcam that you can't pick up and go outside and use. The other thing about webcams are the eye line gets thrown off when you clip it onto your computer. You don't have the same ability with teleprompter mode or Zoom calls to look into somebody's eye or really close on your own laptop screen and look at the person that you're talking to, which translates, if you're calling in on a podcast, to your audience. Another thing, I'm not going to talk about the recent dirt cheap Mac Neo. And the reason is I'm looking at an M1, a base classic M1 Air, because that model is still usable, workable, including editing, and it's much more affordable right now than the Neo. And the M1 Air doesn't have problems with working in 4K. If you know how to use it correctly, you can edit 4K, but DaVinci Resolve and Adobe Premiere have problems with the Neo stuttering. A lot of things I've seen research and I've seen videos, I'm just not feeling comfortable about that, so I'm not going that route right now. With the exception on the Neo that if you're a Final Cut Pro editor, then it's fine. With Final Cut Pro, it's $300. And I'm going to show you an option that's a super powerful editor in the upcoming episodes that is free. All right, let's get into some of this gear. Let's see what's going on. Here we go. I want to cover super briefly a few things about composition and figuring out your background. So again, a lot of us just don't have the space in our homes or apartments where we can clear out a wall, set up some kind of a small shelf, maybe something like this one over here, set up a small shelf, and then decorate it, put some lights, put some well-curated plants, maybe a little fake plastic plant in there, and just make it look nice and splash some light on the wall. I just have no space where I can set anything up. So I've got to use a functioning bookcase. So I just want to show you kind of really quickly what I did. And this may not be perfect, but I want to show you something that's realistic when you're kind of in a jam, you want to get started and you've got to go with what you got. So what I did is I've got this bookshelf here. I'm going to step out of the way. So I've got a bookshelf and I have some records and just kind of move some books, kind of try to neaten stuff up, pipe, low wall, there's lights here, but this is kind of what I've got. So I'm going to work with zooming in, cropping what I can do, whatever I can do. I'm shooting wide. I have some dead space on the walls, which I'm going to crop in and then make it so that when you sit down, you want to have your eyes in the upper third of the frame. Imagine there's a third here, there's a third here, and there's a third in the center. And then there's a bottom third, medium, and top. And you want to generally shoot to have your eyes in the top third or on the line. And again, you have to look at your composition. Some of the stuff I had to move the camera around and I'm not always landing there, but you do want to try to be in that top third, have your eyes on that line, be centered. There are reasons where you may not. I may want to sit over here on the side. I may want to put something up there, right there, and I'm purposely sitting over here to compose outside of the normal rule. So you have to see again what you're doing, why. Another thing is looking at this bookshelf. This bookshelf is cutting off in my neck. I've had some shots where I'm recording this video where it's right here on my eye line. Those are things you would normally not do. But again, my point for doing this video is showing that you've got to make do with what you got. This is the space I have. This is the angle that's the best. I can't bring things down lower because then things look further off. The back gets too cluttered and you start to see things lower down and it just gets overly busy. And in the end, I'm going to show you green screens so that if you have tight space like I do a lot of recording with a virtual studio backdrop because it just gives me more control to make things look pretty, to be contextually relevant. I don't always have to do what everybody else does on the web, sitting with a bookshelf and some equipment gear. Everybody and their mother does this. And I am kind of in a place where I want to rebel against doing what everybody does. But I understand there is an expectation that if you're being real and authentic, you're actually in a room with real equipment and real books and other media and things around you. The stuff you're talking about is in the room with you. So I do go back and forth with whether I want to deal with a less than perfect background or do I want to use a virtual background. I want to show you some very basic lights before we start. I'm a big fan of these Viltrox you see on the screen here, 200Ts. I own 3 of them. Their price range right now, $65 range a piece. This is what it looks like. It's a very basic panel. It has controls on the back for color temperature, meaning Kelvin. You can make things amber or bluer like the sun. You can change intensity. It goes from 20% to 100. And you can add batteries if you don't want to plug them in, like these, which are really reasonable, $20, $25 for a pack of these. It takes 2 here. And then you can turn the light on in the back and control everything. And you have the panel. And this is where you can control light intensity. And you see it go up. And then you tap the button. In addition to that, you tap the button. And now you can see the Kelvin there where it says 30, 4200, 5600. You see it's getting blue. Now it's really amber. It's down at, 3,300. So what's really nice about these are you can adjust these to the color of whatever light's coming through a window, whether if you're inside or out. And if you buy these in a pack, a double pack, you can get them with a remote control. So when you have your light up, you can change the color, the intensity. You can set it up and turn them on and off independently. So, and you get a couple of stands. So I'm a big fan. I've been using these for at least 4 years. And right now in my studio, I'm using 2. But there's another option that I've recently heard about that's very well reviewed. The brand's called GVM and they're called 800D. And they operate very similar to the Viltrox. They have very similar controls. They have an app that you can use. But the bonus with them is you can also change colors more than just amber and blue for sunlight and indoor lighting. They can turn blue, green. So you can do really nice, pretty backdrops and interesting things. And the price range on those is very similar. So if you needed a light kit, these are 2 great options, and I can attest to the Viltrox. I've been using them a lot for years, and they're very stable. Okay, so with these lights and the lighting setup, I'm just going to show you really briefly on the video here. Normally, you would have 2 45-degree angles, one over to the left, one over to the right, and you would basically set them up, one a little more intense, one a little bit less, and it would give your face a little bit of character, some shading. I've got both pretty well on me, one at 45 and one straight in front with a scrim, which is a screen that diffuses it. But I'm doing a direct light on me because My face and complexion isn't phenomenal. I've had, to the shame of my high school self, forever not had a great complexion. So I actually don't want to highlight all kinds of character and three dimension. I want it to be as smooth as possible. So I've got this light right in front of me that's better than a ring light because it's broader, it's further away, it's more powerful, and it does more room lighting. So it's more natural, but it is in front of me the way a ring light would. And then I have another panel over here that's giving me more light to just kind of smooth out my face and keep pock marks and things. So you've got to decide when you're doing this, what's right for you and your face. You've got to decide what you feel comfortable with. You don't have to do what everybody else says as far as setting up on angles to be more moody or whatever. Do what feels right and what looks right to you. What you're going to see here on this camera, the webcam and the M1 Air, it's very fuzzy. It's very pixelated. The max resolution is 720p, but it's not even that it's 720p. It's that it's a low resolution 720p. Even with a lot of light, I have the camera set right now to just straightforward record. It's in the highest settings. And honestly, when you zoom in a little bit on me, you'll see all this pixelation. I can't even not zooming in at all. If I want to do any digital trickery or I want to pop in like this and pop out, you can see all this noise and there's really nothing you can do about it. One thing you can tweak a little bit is with the current Mac OSs, you can do a thing called portrait mode. And you come down and you click on the camera that's in the upper top to the right side of the screen and you hit portrait. And when you hit that on, that gives you the ability to fuzz out the background. And you can really fuzz it out or just do a little. And you can do it to kind of what feels right to your eye. And it creates a bokeh, reduced depth of field, reduced focus, which emulates a camera. But on this lens in particular, I like my hair. It's kind of a bit wild. And the background gets confused when you have a lot going on in the image, in the picture, which is always, I'm looking at my hair. The only other thing that happens is if you look over here, as I'm moving around, the background may come in and out of focus along where you're moving because this is an AI generated depth of field. This gives you an idea of kind of what the lowest of low is. This is not considered a great camera. We can also use the bokeh mode, which blurs the background out, which looks a little more professional. But the thing is, this camera, I'm sure even out here, I'm out under late morning skies. I don't think you're really going to be able to use this camera for anything. According to specs and everything that I've read, Apple did something with this webcam here that's more advanced than has existed in the previous models. So this looks pretty dang good. It does a pretty nice job. The resolution is 1080. It does a really nice job with grain, facial detail. Anything that smooths out for me is great. Picks up nice detail, nice color. But the real big deal is portrait mode. There's things popping up over here. But if you stay stable, once you position yourself, if you're relatively stable, it does a decent job. But when we zoom in here, there's still a lot of softness on it when you're in a setting like this with, again, we have these two lights. The image is really still kind of pixely, but it's a lot better than the M1 Air. Outside, look at this footage. It looks really nice, really sharp. The colors are good. And the M5 goes up to 1600 nits if you activate the full brightness of the monitor. So that's the benefit. And the footage, I definitely think stronger than on the inside. You could use that webcam and actually use it in a more professional type setting. iPhone 5C connected into the M1 Air, or in this case, it doesn't matter. It's the same resolution in the M5 versus the M1 Air. In this case, these are older phones, so they have the lightning cord instead of a USB-C. They need lightning to USB-C connectors. Plug it in, open up QuickTime, and select the camera. It does look significantly better from a color perspective and a camera imaging resolution perspective, but there are problems. You're stuck with 640 lines of resolution. Technically, you're not even HD. And number two, anything that's on the camera screen comes through, as you can see here. You actually have to buy a third-party app. One that I love that I've been using for years called Pro Movie is on screen right now. You have to use something like that in camera mode and do a selection option, and then you'll see the stuff disappears. That's the only way you can use this as a webcam. And with it being 640p, And the iPhone 5C still has a lot of issues with not performing as well in low light. I would nix it. This recording is the same. It's hardwired for my iPhone 14 Pro with a lightning cord. One thing worth mentioning here too is you can use a thing called continuity camera. Here's how you do the setting on your phone. And then just make sure Bluetooth, Wi-Fi are enabled on your Mac and on your phone. So same way, when you go to access your camera when it's hardwired as webcam, you can access your phone. So I'm recording, but now I'm recording in 1080 on my laptop. I can't record in 4K with this setup, but 1080. And I have a little more control over certain things here. What I can do is the background right now, I'm going to recompose it a little bit, zoom in, tighten it, because even in 1080, I have a little bit of room to kind of zoom in, tighten up. What I'm going to do is I can come over now that I'm using QuickTime, and I just love being able to come over with portrait mode, and now I can blur the background out. Again, there are some issues with this. The background blurs, but if I move my head a lot around things that are right behind me and I'm moving around, like things over here, can be in focus. And the other thing is, because I like my hair a little bit spiky and wild, it does have an issue with some highlights. You want to get as much light on yourself if you're going to use this mode, if you have any kind of things going on with your hair. I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit with the hair stuff because I really like the control and make it look like it's a more expensive lens on the camera. That's what this emulates. One thing I do want to mention really quickly, if you're using your MacBook to do the recordings, you are in 1080, you're maxed out. So if you like to do a lot of digital zooms and trickery, that does become an issue. Same thing if you're using a phone and you're recording in 1080. The rule of thumb that I was always taught working in Hollywood in the industry was when everything was 1080 years ago, it wasn't in 4K, 20% zoom. So you can do up to 20% push in digitally when you're editing. If you want to move in for a dramatic reason or whatever, you can do that and it still maintains a pretty good integrity in the HD. That was considered broadcast legit. But I do prefer to do 4K because I do a lot of editing tricks and stabilize and repositioning and lots of closer pop-ins to cover up edits and things. So I am a big fan of this option, using this camera to do my podcasting, especially when I want to do something really quick, either podcasting or doing channel entries, just being able to do it quick and neat and clean. The one caveat that I've got with this is if you're using a teleprompter, and here's an example on screen, there's a free non-paid version of it. And what I do, as you can see on screen, is I put the teleprompter right under the lens, the webcam that's built into the laptop. So I'm hitting start, and now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read it. I'm using this MacBook's webcam, and you can see how my eye line is close to the camera. It appears pretty much that I'm looking at the audience. All right, so this is what it looks like with the iPhone 14 rigged as a webcam through QuickTime, and I'm looking right at the top of my screen with the phone right there at the edge, right behind the lid of the laptop here. But the problem is if you bring this lens too far down, there goes the lid, you can see it. And it means there's a little bit of an issue with my eye line not being as direct as it is if you're using the webcam on the laptop. So that's the one place where the webcam, with some of its softness and noise indoors, that mode beats doing this rig. And it isn't about the resolution coming from your phone as a webcam. It's about placement of the lens. So that's the one place where you might consider, if you do a lot of teleprompter, that you might want to use the internal webcam on the MacBook Pro M5 because you're going to get a better eye line. So if you're recording a Zoom call for a podcast, your eye line may not look like you're exactly looking at the audience when you're talking. So it's something to consider. Unless you're just okay with a Zoom call, looking in the lens, you look directly at the lens here instead of worrying about looking below at the person in their face. Okay, so now I'm doing the background replacement, this artificial replacement back here with my M1 Air 720 really low res camera. So you can see my face and the lighting and the color. This is what I would get if I wasn't using my iPhone as a webcam. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put a green screen. You can't entirely see it. There we go. So now with the green screen, I'm even having more issues with getting rid of the green. It's all over here and in my glasses. And again, the resolution on my face is really poor. So this is green screen removal with the internal M5 webcam at 1080. So this is where we look at what a green screen looks like with QuickTime's built-in features. So we're using background replacement. When I click it, this is not as good as more professional software. Doing this is some pretty strong lights. There is a bit of a shadow right here, but that's not really the problem so much. I'm very well lit around my head, this whole area, and there's a lot of artifacting, especially the dead giveaway when you're wearing glasses. Tilting your head, you're getting this green tint. And honestly, this live Apple extraction isn't the greatest. So I would veer away from this unless you've tested it and it just really works for you in your setting. So if you're doing a vlog entry or something and you're going to play it later, DaVinci's 3D keyer, which is free in DaVinci Resolve, that works way better. And you can do that with this setting. Let's take a look and see. So this is the green screen removal lit with just the two lights that I've shown before. Here's a green screen. This is what it looks like. Some hand movement. I'm looking around. So right now, we're using an iPhone 14 as a webcam. It's plugged directly with a lightning cord into this old M1 Air, and I'm using QuickTime, and we're capturing this at its max resolution, which is 1080 when you have this rig. So this is what a green screen looks like extracting up here and around with just the two lights in our studio. We're using a plugin called 3D Keyer in DaVinci Resolve, the free version. So this is what it looks like to pull stuff out, and moving my head around. My hair is a little bit spiky the way I like it. My glasses, you would sometimes see distortion that you'll see if you're using regular webcams here. This is what it looks like. Now compare this. This is a really good 48 megapixel camera built into the iPhone 14. And I'm moving around and the extraction isn't bad. This is a live extraction, but you can still see, even though the back right behind me is clean, as I'm tilting, you can still see it's having a hard time with my glasses getting that green out. So if I'm looking around without glasses and I'm moving, that does take care of a lot of trouble. So for you out there, you may find out, yeah, this kind of setup, when I rig this up, it works. So you might be able to get away with the internal webcam, but the connecting your iPhone, like a 14 like this, does a nice job when you use it as a webcam hardwired in. So if you're on a call with Zoom because you've created a virtual studio, especially if you're calling into a podcast, you could do this live. So this is, to me, totally workable for a call-in where you could set up a nicer virtual studio. So the takeaway here, iPhone, like a 14 and above, webcam mode with your phone is pretty nice, and it is an improvement even over some of these more modern MacBooks just released at the end of 2025, early 2026. So very much an option, but you could rely on one of the newer M5 MacBooks to do some of your work, especially if you're doing teleprompter work. So now in the next episode, right over here, the link above, we're going to talk about how to use your phone exclusively. You can use your phone in two modes: sharing through wireless Bluetooth to a monitor, like one of your laptops, or you can hardwire it, just like you did with a webcam, but you're no longer working as a webcam, you're recording to your phone. And a little bit of a spoiler, this almost entire episode has been recorded on my phone with one of my laptops used as a monitor, so I could see where I'm sitting, positioning, make sure everything's running okay. But I'm not using the laptop itself to record. I'm using the phone, so I get full 4K resolution. So stick around because you're going to find out how you can do an even better job than what you see in this episode with your phone for your channel. Oh, and the iPhone 5C isn't dead yet.